Okay, I just want to say thank you for all of you for being here. We're gonna start. We started our live stream, and we're now gonna have our first speaker, Yifa Segal. I'm gonna introduce her, and then we'll start off with this part of the event. So Yifa has a BA in law from the University of Haifa and a MA in international relations from the University of Tel Aviv. In the years 2013 to 2014, she was the joint director of Tazpit Press Service. She was also director of International Legal Forum, and most recently, she was the chief of staff to the Israeli ambassador of the United States. She will be talking about the delegitimization against Israel, the rise of anti-Semitism, and what we can do about it. Please.
How long do I have? 20, 30 minutes. Okay. Shut me up whenever you want. Okay. So this is weird. I think this is a subject that we can spend hours talking about. So I just chose a few things that I think are critical for people today that are active, fighting against anti-Semitism, trying to understand it, trying to engage, with others, whether in Israel, but most importantly in the international arena about this issue. And I also think there's a lot of misunderstandings. There are a lot of this is an issue. Saying anti-Semitism now is something that I think, we as a group, as Jewish people, we can't agree exactly on what it is, which acts can or cannot be considered anti-Semitic and stuff like that. That is that is making us, divided as well. We don't need excuses to be divided, but I think this is something that we need to really thoroughly kind of understand and think about and come to as a broad agreement or understanding as much as we can, because I think this phenomena is growing. So I'll just give you some thoughts that I have had about this and the ways that I chose to deal with it. Okay. So first of all, it's not entirely clear to us today, what it means to be anti-Semitic. I mean, we can tell now, looking in retrospect, that if there was a day when someone said, well, because you're a Jew, you are the, what did I do? Okay. You worship the wrong God, or, you're responsible for killing Christ and you're adversary of the devil, or that you're a Jew, therefore, racially, in terms of your DNA, you're just corrupt or evil, or some kind of a disease on humankind, then we can spot that. Today we can spot that. It's very easy to spot that today and say that's anti-Semitic. But we need to understand kind of how, the human mind or the psychology behind, the movements of people, to understand how that came to be. Because what we need to understand is that most people are not, they don't wake up in the morning and they say, I know I'm a bad person. I've decided to go and prosecute this group of people because they're weak, because I can, because I need some outlet for my rage. And therefore, I'll just go and be violent against them, whether rhetorically or physically, and I'll be happy. Most people don't say that. I don't know, maybe, psychopaths have that, way of thinking. And we have to ask a psychologist. Maybe they wake up in the morning and say, I have to find a victim today. I'm going to beat the shit out of them. I'll be very happy. But most people don't do that. They have a very good rationale behind their activism, behind their hatred, and even behind their violence. I mean, if you look at the world today or throughout history, you had millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people that are hateful and violent. Trust me, they don't wake up in the morning and say, I know I'm bad and I love it. That's not what they say. They have a very good, reason they tell themselves, or they were told, to why they have to do what they do, even if sometimes it's uncomfortable. They know it's uncomfortable, but that's what they have to do. Okay, so if you look at the time in history where religion was really the focus of society, right? Then to get people to to decide to act against the Jews as a collective, you had to tell these type of stories. So you tell people you have to act against the people who conspired against Christ, because they got Christ to be crucified. Tomorrow will be you, and they're acting against God, and they will infect your youth and your women and your men and your whatever, and you have to act and preempt that. And they poisoning the wells today, just like they did in the old days, etc. So you feel as that you have to defend yourself, and you're convinced, that this is the way to do it, and that was how they got people to be anti-Semitic or anti-Jews at the time. Same goes with um, racist or nationalistic type of motivations or narratives. Okay, if you don't stop the Jews are conspiring. I mean, look at you, you're poor, or you lost the war in Germany, or look at everything that goes on around. Look at the coronavirus. Okay, and those Jews once again conspired to kill us and to take our money and to drink our blood, and there's some kind of a secret society, whatever, that is very active throughout the ages in doing that. And so you are convinced that there's some kind of greater evil, even if the Jews look like a nice, they look nice, but that's a part of the conspiracy. Okay? So that's what gets most people to kind of join these hateful types of movements, even though for someone like me, I sit and I'm like, this looks like a perfectly reasonable human being. What happened? And this brings me to the issue of today. So today it is about religion and it is about race, but in the mainstream of the liberal kind of democratic world, that's not the dominant kind of factor in society today. And what do we have? What took place? What replaced old values? The new thing is human rights, which is amazing. Amazing. The world now, I think, at least in our democratic liberal society, is in a much better place than it ever was before, in that sense. But the problem with that is that it's also can be manipulated, definitely can be manipulated, as we can see. And the second thing is that every good thing also has its kind of form of extreme. Okay, even love has a form of extreme, right? You have jealousy, we know what that feels like. We understand how things can come and take an extreme form. And again, I say things are open to manipulation, especially when it's this new and it's this powerful. And we see people going off the deep end sometimes when they talk about these values that are so important to them. So let's try to understand the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish kind of activism or supportive world, okay? So I see it as like constructed of three layers or tiers of activism or belief. So if we look at the anti-Israel world, you have the people that they know. They wake up in the morning and they've decided back in 2001, there was a Durban conference. Need me to explain what that is, or everyone knows what I'm talking about? Explain? Okay, 2001, the United Nations, there was a conference called the Durban Conference. It took place in South Africa, deliberately in South Africa, to talk about the apartheid of South Africa. And this was a United Nations event, and the world was invited to talk about anti-racism and anti-apartheid and the whole thing. Of course, Israel had a delegations, Jewish organizations, Zionist Jewish organizations had delegations. They went to Durban. Just shockingly, I mean, no one thought that this would be like a pro-Israel event because it's a United Nations event. But no one, the people, the delegations had no idea, what they're going to go into. It was a hate fest to an extent none of them ever imagined possible, and they completely hijacked the entire conference just to kind of create that equivalent of Israel equals apartheid. Israel today equals South Africa of apartheid years. And it was successful beyond belief. I mean, if you think about the BDS movement, everything that we know today is a problem that we need to face. Everything took root in that conference, in the Durban conference. I call it like the trial run of the new kind of boycott movement, to kind of couple the human rights narrative with the anti-Israel narrative. And it was so successful that they understood this is probably the best and the smartest way to go forward, because hey, look at all these people. All of a sudden, they're also very passionate about our cause. So when I talk about the first layer, the first tier, the inner circle of BDS or anti-Israel movement, I'm talking about these people. They know what they're doing. This is something that was brilliantly thought of by someone, by a group of people. They thought, we're going to hijack the concept of apartheid. We're going to put this in this context. We're going to have this conference, There's a group of people, even today, that they're very active in the world of BDS or anti-Israel activism, that they know exactly what they're doing. They do the manipulation of the films and the videos and the narratives, and they tell all these lies about poisoning wells and taking homes, and the Sheikh Jarrah story, for example. Someone thought that this is this might be a real estate dispute that aged back like 150 years, but maybe if we just kind of change the details a little bit, we can turn this into a major campaign to be an anti-Israeli campaign. Someone orchestrated this thing, right? So this is the first group of people, the inner circle of the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic activism. The second layer are the people that are anti-Semitic. Okay, they don't care about necessarily anti-Israel, not anti-Israel. They don't care about human rights in Jerusalem or in the territories or in Gaza or wherever. They don't care at all about human rights. But this was a cause for celebration. Here's a movement, that's targeting the Jews and targeting the Jewish state, and of course we hate them for religious reasons or racist reasons or whatever. And here's an opportunity to just join the party because it's such a successful party. So we want in. So this is kind of, and there's a lot of them. I mean, if you look at like the neo-Nazi organizations in the United States, for example, what do they care there as a state of Israel? I mean, it's quite the opposite. If you don't want the Jews gone from the United States, send everyone to Israel. But it's such an opportunity for them to kind of express and publicly support and join a movement of hatred that they just join a party. And of course, the Islamic groups and the different Muslim groups, etc., that radical Islamic groups. So now it brings me, the reason I'm telling you all of this is that I want to talk to you about the third group of people that today, I don't know, but I think they're getting to be the biggest group of people. I don't know if that's true, but I definitely know that they are the most influential and the most important group of people that we need to address. And that's the third cycle, okay? And what do I mean by that? And I've always said that if we, at the end of the day, remain with the jihadists and the anti-Semites, we're good. We're good. What the biggest problem that we had are those people that for so many years. And let me ask you something. If you had lived somewhere else, and someone had talked to you for years and years and years about this country far away, and all you've heard about it is that they're colonialists, evil oppressors, they kill babies, they steal this, they take that, all the time, and not just from random people in the street. You hear it from the biggest newspaper in the country, and you hear it on college campuses, and you hear it from celebrities that you value and appreciate, and basically everywhere you go that you hear an opinion from someone that matters to you to some extent. That's what they say. Okay? What would you think? Really? And you are a true, liberal, at least Democrat, and you really believe in human rights, and you really can't tolerate the thought of this group of people that just all day, every day, all they do is steal and rape and kill. It's unbearable. And there's this huge global movement. Which side are you going to be on? I mean, just imagine yourselves, okay? And unfortunately, no, they don't have access to anyone telling them otherwise. They don't know the history. They don't bother to study the history. And that's not just an anti-Israel problem. It's just a problem that we have, with the human race. People don't have the time and the energy and the focus to really learn every little thing and base your own opinion. So kind of going against the currents. So I just want you to, the reason I'm telling you all this is that when you deal now with a lot of these people that have joined the movement, the BDS movement or the anti-Israel movement, that are active or vocal against Israel, a lot of these people, this is where they come from. It's real. They have real intentions, they have good intentions, and it's real. And this is the information that poisoned their hearts and minds for many, many, many years. And this is where they end up, okay? And I think it's very, very important for us to understand that, because when we use the term anti-Semitic, this is anti-Semitic. We need to understand, we need to choose our words very carefully and understand what we're saying. Exactly. Okay, because I don't think. Let's talk about Ben and Jerry's. This is one of the things that really I found it to be infuriating, and I was active. I'm still active. Will be active until the day that they will come and say, on their knees and say, we take it back, like I did with Airbnb. But I don't. First of all, these two men are Jews, so that's kind of a problem. Calling them anti-Semitic, and I don't really believe that they set like Ben and Jerry said like that, and we're like, let's destroy the Jewish state because we hate them, just because, just because. This is they fell into they basically took the red pill, the blue pill, which one was that in the movie, and that's they've been spiraling ever since, and they're not the only ones. But that is it. Can we say now that it's not anti-Semitic to single out the one country in the world, one country, and their products can be found in. I checked. You can find their products in every place on earth. Okay, they've never came out with a statement saying we will not allow our products to be sold at this and that. Only Israel. Okay, so is this not anti-Semitic? I mean, this is the very definition of anti-Semitic. But what I'm trying to say is that when we tackle this, I call it, I'm a lawyer and my background is in international law, and I say, you can aid and abet anti-Semitism. And that offense does not require intent. You don't necessarily have to have like the intent of being anti-Semitic, but there's a movement here that is anti-Semitic, and you are negligent at best, by aiding and abetting a movement that their actions are anti-Semitic. Its purpose is anti-Semitic. You haven't looked into it. You haven't thoroughly looked into it. Basically, at best, you're negligent and you're aiding and abetting anti-Semitism. That's what you're doing. That is de facto what is going on. Okay? If a drunk driver, goes into his car and hits a little boy and kills it, okay? And of course, he didn't intend. It's the worst nightmare for him in the world that he just hurt a little boy. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what he did. So he was negligent, or whatever you want to call it, but the result is the same result. And that when we talk about people like Ben and Jerry's, of course there are a million examples. The people that contribute to Human Rights Watch, for example. I don't know if you follow all these reports, by these organizations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. I mean, you name it. There are so many organizations that if you look back and you say, I mean, come on, you people have done so much good for so many decades around the world, and there's just literally one issue that you don't even bother study thoroughly. And this is what you're doing. I mean, you're a global organization with such credibility that your words matter. And what you're doing, de facto, is that you are contributing to the delegitimization of my very existence, really. Okay? So we are, again, at a time that, let me tell you something. I just came back from Washington, and in the summer, I think it was July maybe, there was a demonstration outside Congress, to kind of raise awareness to fight against anti-Semitism. So I went to the demonstration, and I've been to these types of events many times. I spoke at these events, I participated in these events, I organized these events. This was the first time that I came to one of these events as a Jew living in the United States. Because I was born and raised in Israel, traveled around the world my entire, career, never lived abroad. So I came to that demonstration, and I can't even explain to you. I mean, I don't know, some of you, most of you maybe have lived or were born in the United States or somewhere else and came to Israel. So you probably maybe know that experience from, alternatively. But I was appalled. I can't even, like, all of a sudden I understood that we're standing there begging, of any foreign parliament, any group of majority of the majority, to allow us to exist. We have a right to fight for our very existence. We don't want anything. We're not asking for, more money, more this, more that, just to exist. The fact that there's anti-Semitism in the United States today is wrong. That's what it was about. And there's still a need for thousands of Jews to come and stand outside Congress to say that. So today, even though we have our sovereignty, and I can tell you that I have a newly found appreciation. I've always appreciated that. I was very lucky to be born in Israel. Never had to deal with the fact that I'm a part of the minority. Now we're a majority. That comes with responsibility. But when you have the responsibility, then you can choose what to do with it. And so, I think all of us as activists are always trying to improve, the way that we are responsible as the majority. But we're not the minority, which is amazing if you think about it, because my very existence does not rely on the good gracious of any other group, okay? But now when you look at the international arena, and I think now more than ever that, the world is a global village in a way, and our existence, to an extent, does rely on the permission of other nations. Their permission for our existence, their permission for our survival. And I think the more the world becomes that way, the more there was a type of awakening within activists like ourselves to say, this is not an arena, this is not a fight that we can neglect anymore. Because we have to make sure that we kind of secure our own survival in that international arena, and that's when it matters, because these groups are unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if you ever follow these groups. They're everywhere. They're in every parliament in the world, lobbying against the existence of the state of Israel. Okay, when you talk to people that are BDS activists, what you find yourself do is defend the very existence of your Jewish state. That's what you're doing. And we're not arguing a policy. Okay, that's great. That's fine. I don't mind that. But that's what we're doing. And I've never encountered any other situation, a conversation about any other country or any other group, that's what they need to do. Stand up there and say, I'm here to defend my very existence. And I want to share one last thing with you that I found to be very helpful. And that, people can be religious or non-religious. They can come, they can be scientists or not scientists, or whatever and wherever they come from. And so I don't go into arguments with them about theology or history or archaeology or anything like that. What I found to be very useful is to say, in a world when we all believe in the right to self-determination, then you don't have to believe in the Jewish Bible. Like, Jews believe in the Jewish Bible, at least religious Jews believe in the Jewish Bible. There's no requirement for a Christian or for a secular person in Italy to believe in the Jewish Bible like the Jews believe in the Jewish Bible. There's also no need for whoever to believe in the archaeological findings or the history of the Jews exactly as we tell it. You don't have to believe that exactly. No one has to follow exactly our story and our narrative. But there's one thing that really strikes me as unbelievable. And that is the fact that they don't see one thing, that we, the Jews, have been telling this story consistently for thousands of years. That is all you need to understand now if you are a true believer in the right of self-determination. This is my story. This is the way I've been telling it, not just me, but my mother and my grandmother and her grandmother before her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for hundreds of generations, for thousands of years. So you cannot tell me that you really are a human rights activist and you really are a person that is, one of the most important things to you in the world is the right of self-determination, when you don't respect even that basic fact that we, the Jews, are here in the land of Israel, because this is the story of our people for thousands of years. And I have to tell you, I couldn't find any one of them that had a real comeback to that. Anyway, there's a lot to say. I'll stop here. You guys want questions or no? Okay. What, to that? the thing I found about, when people get lost in conversation, so they kind of go back to their original argument and raise the volume. And then they go back and raise the volume, go back, raise the volume. Now, the way to have an argument, I found, first of all, I don't waste time talking to stupid people individually. It's a waste of time. No, really, honestly, like, you can't convince everybody. There's no chance in hell. If you sit me down with Rashida Tlaib, I'm not gonna. Why? I mean, let's go have nap. That's a bit better use of my time. But what matters is the people that are sitting around you. Those people matter. Okay. And so if you find yourself debating someone like that, even someone extreme, I mean, if there's an audience around you, there's a group of people around you, especially if there's, I've been debating people on public stages or bigger crowds, they matter. So all you have to do in that context is just, keep cool, let them, circle around themselves, raise the volume. Now, what you see when you sit in the outside is a person like me saying, I'm not trying to force you into thinking like me or believing my story or being with me every step of the way. All I'm asking you for you to do is respect my traditions and heritage. That's all I'm asking. And then they see the other person going completely mental, just going crazy and crazy and crazy. Then you win a lot of people in the audience. Yeah. Uh-huh. I think it was July. Yeah. Well, I think first of all, I think it's a process, and also I understand them. I have a lot of empathy for them. I can only imagine, when you're a college student, you're 18 or you're 19 or 20, and all of a sudden you realize that you're siding. I mean, the side that you're siding with is the most unpopular thing on planet Earth. And it has real ramifications. First of all, I mean, you're a young man or woman, and you just want to hang out or date this cool person, whatever, and you're in the wrong camp of not just the wrong camp. You're viewed as the devil itself because you are supportive of the devil itself. So that's a real challenge. And I think what we need to do is, first of all, kind of have a lot of empathy. I think the scariest thing for me in the world is the divide between us. That's the scariest thing. And the divide comes from not understanding, from not having an empathy. So I think what we need to do is not be angry at these people and not try to fight these people. Just try to feed them information and give them the safe space to, in time, want to read more, want to ask questions, want to be closer and closer to you because they have an opening. The door is open for you to come back to us. The door is open for you to ask questions. The door is open for you to have hard questions or critical questions or criticism. The door is open. Let's have a conversation. I understand where you're coming from. And if it takes you a day or a year or 10 years, the door is open for you to come back. And so when you give the people the, kind of an opening to just question a little bit, just have, not be so 100% sure they have the right, they're siding with the right team, then most people with time, at least they would start questioning, they would start a conversation. I think that's the safest, best bet we have. And just understand it's not going to be tomorrow. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's a very, that's a very good question because yes and no. I mean, it depends on which issue. If you're looking for Jewish history, or you're looking at the Israeli current history, you're looking for information about the War of Independence, or it depends on which issue, and it's and you're right. I mean, sometimes it's very hard to find, and you need to have someone who will recommend specifically on something that is interesting to you. It's a lot harder, unfortunately, than it sounds. But I do invite you, if you want, if you want to read, more about any one of these topics. Um, Contact me. Any one of the organizations usually have some kind of a list of recommendations. I'm happy to recommend. There are books that I feel have given me so much, ammunition in these battles, that I think are invaluable. Everyone has a book that they think is invaluable. So anyone who would like to ask for recommendations for me, I guess you guys also, please do that. It's very important. Thank you. All right. תודה רבה.